standing by. All participants will be on a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's call. At that time, you may press star then 1 to ask a question from the phone lines. I would also like to inform all parties that the call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I'd now like to turn the call over to your host, Ms. Irene Skaricki. Thank you, ma'am. You may begin.
Great, very much, and welcome everyone to our Finex webinar today on libraries as a financial education resource. We're delighted everybody could join us, especially in this busy time of year when people's minds hopefully are all turning towards thoughts of upcoming vacations. We do want to do our webinar every month for Finex. So I'm going to do a brief introduction as somebody, either me or someone else, does on every Finex call, and then we will turn it over to our presenters to talk about the Libraries Initiative, and in addition to someone from the CFPB, Coriel, to speak on our work. We also have a librarian from the Brooklyn Public Library joining us as well. We're delighted to have James Dye. We're delighted to have him as well with us today. So, just starting with our usual disclaimer that government employees have to say that we are providing legal interpretation, guidance, or advice, and our opinions stated are those of the presenter and may represent the Bureau's views. So probably everybody on this call knows this well, but we just always want to make sure there's a level playing field here, that CFPB is a federal agency that works on consumer finance markets to make rules more effective, consistently enforce those rules, and empower consumers to take more control of their economic lives. And it's the last piece about helping consumers that we really work on here in the Office of Financial Education and through the CFPB Financial Education Exchange. The Financial Education is part of the consumer-facing part of the Bureau, the Consumer Education and Engagement Division, and we work closely with some of the other offices within the CFPB working on special populations to make sure that all American consumers are getting the financial education that they need. Just quickly, again, probably everyone on this call hopefully is part of Finex and has been getting newsletters, and that's hopefully how you knew about this webinar, but in case you're not, you may want to sign up to get regular updates from the Financial Education Exchange, or Finex. Basically, we are a network of financial educators around the country who are getting information from the CFPB on our latest tools and resources, sharing your own knowledge back to us through surveys and in different regional meetings we have, and learning about the different financial education topics through our webinars and convenings. And I'll just put up one slide quickly. We have almost 200 people in Finex around the country, as well as a similar number in our LinkedIn discussion group. And this is our 20th webinar, our 20th consecutive webinar. So I'm very excited about that list of topics we've covered, all of which can be listened to, almost all, on our webpage. Quickly, as you probably, again, many of you know, we have a resource inventory for financial educators that you can get on our website. It talks about the different tools and resources we have that are all available for financial educators to use. Webpage you can see here, consumerfinance.gov/adult-financial-education, and that is the place to find all of our things for educators, including the inventory I showed. We also have a LinkedIn discussion group where you can post your own things as well as see what we're posting. So that's standard background, and if anybody is not in Finex and wants to get the monthly newsletter, you can just email CFPB_Finex at cfpb.gov, and I'll put that email address will be up at the very end of the webinar in case anybody didn't catch it. Now we will turn to our topic of the day, and I think what's fun about this is that this is a project that we have been doing with libraries, but to help them partner with financial educators, and we thought it would be useful to have financial educators here hear about this directly and think about ways you might want to reach out to your own libraries and learn about some of the opportunities. So I'm going to turn it over to Dubis Coriel to talk about a libraries project. After her, our librarian, James Nye from Brooklyn, will come on and speak. And just before Dubis starts, I'll just note that the operator mentioned we will take voice questions at the end, but if you have any questions or clarifying questions or want to tee anything up for later, you can use the Q&A function within the WebEx, if you're in the WebEx, and I will keep track of those and we'll ask those at the appropriate moment. So with that, I will turn it over to Dubis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Irene said, my name is Dubis Correal, and I'm also with the Office of Financial Education here at the Bureau. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the library's program that we have, some of the tools that we have created for the library, and may inspire you to think about ways how you can work with your library. And as Irene mentioned, we invited James from the Brooklyn Public Library for him to share the work that he's doing with financial education providers. So the program we started the program in the summer of 2013, and this was as a result of a lot of listening sessions that we did across the country when we started the Office of Financial Education. What we heard from consumers was that sometimes people don't know where to go for answers. We thought that libraries would be the obvious place for people to go, but what people don't know is that libraries have changed their role in their communities. Libraries are not the place where people only take out books. Libraries have become this hub of the community where they provide many other services. So we really wanted to do was to build an infrastructure, coordinating with libraries and also working with national partners. And the goal of the program with the libraries was leveraging their presence in their communities and helping them expand their efforts, because also throughout the whole process we learned that there are many libraries out there doing great things. So we wanted to sort of amplify and share those best practices. We also interview more than 700 people.
Sorry.
700 people, and we learned we include librarians, patrons, library staff, administrators, because we really wanted to assess what were librarians doing in this space and how we could help. So what you see on the screen is some statistics about libraries. And I think the one that caught our attention is the last bullet on that slide, where it says that about 25% of the public use the computer at the library for either commercial needs or for managing their personal finance. And it is impressive as to how people are using librarians. A lot of small businesses also use the libraries. Libraries have the technology. I learned about a library that gives people in low-income communities, they can provide hotspots, so they can bring them to the house and use for people who don't have Wi-Fi. So it's really impressive the work that libraries are doing in the community, and that's why Bureau wanted to work with them. And this work with libraries have to be done by other groups. We have partnered with national organizations, and we'll talk a little bit about who are we partnering with. So there were other groups that were working with libraries before, and we have also learned a lot from those groups. Next. So when we did the survey that I mentioned before, we wanted to hear from libraries as to what the needs were. And what we heard from librarians was that they wanted a list of resources that are vetted, that are easy to identify. You as financial education providers know that if we Google financial literacy, thousands of resources come out. And for a librarian who don't have the same kind of expertise in the field of financial education, it is very hard to identify what's good and what's bad. So they asked us to put together a list of resources. And also they asked us for outreach materials, because if they're going to start promoting financial education programs, they needed a way to let their patrons know about these programs. They also asked us as to how they could partner with either financial education providers or other members of the community. So this is where we think that you as a financial education provider could play a big role. There are many libraries that are very experience and engaging in partnerships, signing MOUs. But there are also many libraries out there that would like to work with partners, but they don't know how to start. Also, something that is very important for libraries is that libraries are a trusted source in their communities, and we don't want groups to see libraries as a platform to market their products. So they also have to be very vigilant as to who they partner with. So they asked us about ideas, and I'll talk a little bit more about a resource that we created in that area. And so they wanted to learn from each other. So we're highlighting the Brooklyn Public Library today because they have done great things. So how a library in Los Angeles or any other part of the country can learn about what the Brooklyn Public Library is in the space of financial literacy. Librarian has many other places where they get together in platforms that they share. But in terms of financial literacy, there are not many out there. So they asked us for that as well. They asked us for training and asked us to be flexible because there are libraries of many sizes, different sizes. They serve different populations. So the program that we created is more menu of things for libraries that they can use. So if we go to the next slide, so some of the resources that we created in response to what librarians asked us. And so we have webinars, same as Irene, who conducts webinars every month on different topics. We did that for librarians. We have them posted on our website. And what's interesting about it is that librarians come different times to view those webinars. In the last year, we have had more than 8,000 views of those webinars. We also create an inventory of resources, and they are posted on our website. You see the website address at the bottom of that page. And we do have a criteria, of course, for the programs that we post. But if you have any ideas, any programs that you think will be helpful to libraries, you can let us know. And as Irene said, we'll highlight the email at the end of the presentation. We also, on a quarterly basis, post program ideas. For example, we posted one about tools on auto lending and how librarians can use those and share them with their patrons. We also have a lot of outreach materials like bookmarks, posters, fact sheets, different materials that librarians can use to promote their programs. And the last two items are highlighted because we believe this is where your role is important. So the partnership guidebooks that we created is posted also on our website, and what it does, it lists potential national, state, and local partners, provides an overview of CFPB, helps libraries build community partnerships, and includes resources like, for example, examples of sheets that librarians can use to think through a prospective partnership. What we're trying to do is help librarians because since the economic downturn, many libraries have experienced reduced budgets and staff cuts. So they depend a lot on help from others in their communities to maintain and increase their services. They also get grants from different groups. Partnering with others is helpful to librarians. So that's why we created this tool. And
while you're turning your page there, you had mentioned that the website was up on the screen. In case there's anyone on the phone who isn't seeing the screen, I'm just going to read it for you. www.consumerfinance.gov/library-resources. And that's where all the things Dubis is describing. The webinars, the partnership guidebook, the program ideas are all there.
Yes, thanks, Irene. So we also, in terms of the partnership guidebook, we sort of put on the screen a couple of questions that are helpful to librarians as they think about how to partner with other groups. Like, for example, what is the purpose of the program? What are the library's goals for the program? Will patrons benefit from this program? Who's the audience for this program? So sort of helping those librarians who don't have the expertise in terms of engaging with other partners think through the things that they need to think about. Because the library, as I mentioned before, their reputation is very important in their community, and they have to make sure that those partnerships that they engage in are based on mutual interests and goals, and also that the information that the librarian provides is unbiased, because, as I said before, they're very careful not products to their patrons. Some of those partnerships that they have, and we learn from them, are formal, where they do sign MOUs, and some others are very informal. Just to show you here the page, and Irene read the URL. We have program ideas, we have the library training webinars, we have outreach materials, we have a list of websites, videos, and courses. You might see some of your programs listed here, and as I said before, if you're interested in working with us on this project, feel free to email us.
And before we go on, I just want to note, having been looking around on the site recently, while it's aimed at librarians, both the program ideas and the websites and videos, as you were mentioning, is actually a list of resources on financial education generally that may be of interest to any financial educator to see where there's a good site that's been, again, that we've kind of sure is okay, that there's, sort of things you may want to look at. So I think it's a resource beyond just
Exactly.
I just want to make sure people particularly take a look at that links to other websites part. Even if you're not working with a library, it could be a really useful resource.
And also we divide some of the resources by topic and also by audience. But yes, please feel free to go and visit that website and use them as appropriate. The next page shows just an image of the ordered inside. Or anyone can order materials from the CFPB in bulk and for free. We have materials about different topics, from how to get a credit score to what to think about when you're getting into a mortgage. So we have all kinds of topics, and all the publications are available in English and Spanish, and we also have many publications available in up to 9 languages. All those publications available to public, to financial education providers, to the libraries for use.
And do you have other questions, since some people on the phone who are part of Finex, we have a resource inventory for financial educators. This is primarily, except for things unique to marketing for libraries, this is the same materials for the most part, things like one page on credit or debt. It's just a different channel, and that's partially for us to keep track of who's ordering, right?
Exactly.
The audience. So it's not like there's things here except for things for librarians like bookmarks and some marketing stuff. But it's only to the things you see through Finex. It's things you can order in bulk, and it's more for us to track who's ordering.
And as preparing for the presentation, I was going through some of the materials that we have that were created specifically for libraries, but they're so general that they can even be used by financial education providers to promote their programs. And so I'm getting close to the end of my presentation here. We just want to make sure that this program is an ongoing program. We're always learning new things. We're always out there asking librarians whether the program is serving their needs. And so if you have any ideas, as I said before, you can email it to us at financialeducation@cfpb.gov. And I'll repeat that, financialeducation@cfpb.gov. If you have a good idea as to how you are working with a library or an idea for a librarian, please let us know. And I wanted to recognize some of the the national partners that we're working with, we're working, for example, with the Finex Investor Education Foundation. They have been helpful. They were doing grants to librarians a long time ago in this space, and they have been very helpful in helping us think through a lot of the strategies in this program. We also work with the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is a federal agency that provides funding through the states to libraries across the country. And we work with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and our this initiative with them has been very helpful, where we connected the SEC agencies to librarians, and since we started this partnership, more than 300 workshops on credit have been conducted at libraries across the country. We also partner with in the federal government, like the Federal Trade Commission. They also have great publications that we distribute through this program. I think the great thing this program is that we're leveraging resources out there. We are creating a couple of things, but most of the stuff that we have compiled for librarians is stuff that is out there, and we didn't want to duplicate here. We wanted to make sure that we group this information in a way that makes sense to librarians, and that's basically what we're doing. So just wanted to highlight, you see the rest of the partners that we're working with. All of them have some sort of local presence in their communities, and that's how we're able to connect local libraries to local partners. So just wanted to make sure that I outlined those.
And Dubis, one just sort of back to this about the email address you sent out earlier. If anyone has any library questions and you don't remember the financialeducation@cfpb.gov email address, anything sent to the Finex inbox, I will pass on to Dubis and the libraries folks. So your comments will not get lost as we keep track of all of those inboxes.
Yes, and at this point, I'll turn it over to James, because we thought it would be great to hear from a librarian how their experiences working with local partners at community. So James, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Hello, my name is James Dye, and I'm a finance librarian at the Brooklyn Public Library in our new Business and Career Center. We've had a business library in Brooklyn for many years, but we recently moved the business library to our central library because we are trying to reinvent it as a more active presence in the community, and to focus on that are specifically helpful to our patrons. So our emphasis right now is personal finance, small business assistance, and employment. And I'm one of 2 librarians who specifically work in personal finance, assisting patrons with personal finance questions. We have a good selection of books, and I help patrons with titles that I would recommend. I finance titles for the library, but a larger portion of what we're trying to do now is work with local organizations for more direct assistance, I guess you would say, than just having a nice collection of finance books. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our current services that we offer in partnership with local organizations. The biggest, I would say, program now to the public is our financial counseling, which we offer together with the Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, which is a local organization dedicated to personal empowerment for local residents. The financial counseling is held every day and every Thursday, and on alternate Saturdays. And a volunteer from Bedside offers financial counseling to patrons on a one-on-one basis, where they will provide assistance and advice on things like repairing credit, balancing a budget, opening a account. Very much like the basics of personal finance. They don't go into the area of investing or the stock market. It's more personal help on managing someone's money to the best of their ability. So it's again topics like budgeting, a budget, insight into how to apply for a mortgage and buying a house, that sort of sorts of topics. And we're currently working with BEDI on a new program that we hope to start next year in 2017. We'll workshops. Right now we're looking at one a month, where we'll pick a topic and have it open to an audience of patrons rather than one-on-one assistants. It would be a workshop for multiple participants. And again, we would choose one topic a month, and it would be the same territory. It would be budgeting or repairing credits, repayments, sorts of topics generally. There's actually a new program that we're just starting now. We've done before. We've with bedside on the financial counseling for quite some time, but the new workshops are something I'm starting to work on now. It's something new that we're introducing. Another program that we offer for the patrons is specifically programs for older adults of a retirement age or older. So the Business and Career Center works with another section of the library, the Services for Older Adults, in offering a series of workshops on financial topics for older patrons. Just 2 months ago, we worked with the older adults in the Business and Career Center worked with our local Social Security office on a program titled "When to from Social Security." And a representative from our local Social Security Administration office speak to patrons on the optimal time to start accepting, Social Security. When is it optimal, depending on, what money they might need to become, every month. Like, what is the optimal age to start? Receiving Social Security, what the benefits are on accepting Social Security right at retirement age versus waiting a few years. And the representative from Social Security, provided good graphs and charts the patrons could use to determine what is the right age for themselves to, start working with Social Security and benefits. Offer a active class, usually during the summer months. We call the Virtual Investment Club, and a program that was started with the grant we received from FINRA several years ago. That grant has now been completed, but we are going ahead and continuing with the program with our own funds. And we work with a local financial counselor, Mina Enin Black, who is wonderful. She hosts the program. And it's a class. Usually there's an introductory class for educational classes and then a final wrap-up, I guess you'd say. We patrons are introduced to the stock market, learn about the basic concepts of investing, what this market is, what the major exchanges are, how stock investment works. And they basically pretend, I guess you'd say, to invest in stocks. And Mina monitors their success based on stocks they've chosen to invest. She interest earned on this. Of course, they're not using real money. It's just an educational exercise, but they want to invest in the stock market. They learn. Learn about returns. They learn about indices, all the basics of stock market investing, and then at the program in the final workshop, she usually rewards small prizes to the patrons who have earned the most interest on their stock market picks. a really fun way to teach about the stock market and investing in a way that's not too dry, and not just series of lectures. They're actually participating and learning on their own and with me how to invest and having fun, enjoying themselves doing it. And we also offer financial counseling specifically for immigrants who are seeking advice about citizenship through the New York Legal Assistance Group. And so if they need financial counseling in regards to obtaining citizenship, that is something that we offer. Again, it's a partnership with the New York Legal Assistance Group, and they help local immigrants with any financial matters that they might need to know in regards to citizenship. So these are right now the 4 major programs that we hold with outside organizations. We have other resources for patrons, such as databases that they can use to learn and to learn about finances and learning. Our FINRA grant has finished. We actually have a program still available on our website that was created in development with the FINRA grants called Growing Dollars that patrons can access through our website, and it's a series of interactive programs that they can use at home or a library through our website to learn about these topics as well. So the FINRA grant has completed. We still have the resources of the grants available through the interactive programs on our website. And labs in our business center that patrons can use to on their own time learn about finance through our web resources. We try to do more than just offer personal finance books. We have plenty of those, and we're happy to help patrons learn which to read and buy good books for personal finance. But we're trying to be more proactive in working with our community and working with other organizations on these personal finance topics. And since the FINRA grant has completed, we are really basing a full push on our own to keep continuing with resources available to the community and working with these programs, making them available. We're, as I mentioned, we are expanding what we're doing since we no longer we're FINRA grants. We are expanding on our own with personal finance workshops. Particularly, that's going to be a big what we want to offer to our patrons. I also host a series of additional programs where I will teach basics of personal finance and to other librarians, and other branches of the public library system. Specialized in business particularly, but are interested in learning about the subject to help their patrons and their business. Occasionally I'll host a workshop where I basically teach other librarians about the basics of web resources that are essential for finance, like CFPB's website and FINRA's website. I just go through general basics where I teach other librarians and hope that they can teach the patrons in their branches, and we can disseminate these topics all through the entire Brooklyn Public Library system, not inside our business and resource center, but throughout all the branches of our library. And we hope to expand further and hope that our ability to serve the Brooklyn community.
Great. That
Sure.
was great. There was a lot of really cool things that you guys are doing up there in Brooklyn.
Thank you.
I have a couple of emailed questions that have been already through the Q&A function, but let me just quickly have the operator open up for voice questions too, as it takes a minute to tee them up. Operator, can you give people instructions on voice questions, and then we'll jump in?
At this time, we would like to begin the question and answer session of today's call. If you would like to ask a question from the phone lines, please press star then 1, unmute your phone, and record your name when prompted. If you need to withdraw your question, please press star then 2. Once again, to ask a question from the phone lines, please press star, then 1, and record your name when prompted. One, please, while questions queue up.
Great, doing that. And again, you can also feel free to send them in through the Q&A function on WebEx. I have a few questions actually I want to ask Dubis, but let me start off with one that came in, James, for you, about the financial counselor who comes to your library to ask if she passes out business cards. Is she allowed to talk about her business? And more really then, how do you kind of prevent promoting a personal business to anyone who may come in and partner with you on financial education?
That's a good question. The financial counseling program does not push any business. It's really assisting the patient with their own issues with budgeting or credit repair, or, the usual topics. They don't push any business agenda. They also do not talk about personal investments such as the stock market. They do not put any business programs whatsoever. It's simply the counselor working with the patient on whatever personal finance issue the assistance with. There's no pushing of any product or outside business. It's strictly, and there's a very for that we have it. It's only assistance, and it's not our wall. It's also the Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation's wall themselves also do not push any business products. It's for assistance of the community only. We're very firm on that.
Right. Some kind of that question is kind of implied. Is she an employee of Bed-Stuy? Is she a volunteer? What is kind of her status relative to or does she have her own business?
It's usually a volunteer or a full-time employee of Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation.
Okay.
If it is a volunteer who has business ties outside, they do not push any outside business in the counseling. That's
great. Quickly see any questions on via phone?
We have a question from the phone lines. It comes from Eduardo. Your line is now open.
I'd like to a question on administration change. Does the financial protection need change in any way through this change? Through the new residencies, or does it have a base education policy or education system, or just a baseline of education through administration change?
We don't know what the future holds, but we will continue to do our jobs here and provide the services that we currently offer, and so that will continue until things change. So we don't need any particular knowledge beyond that, I don't think. I appreciate the question, as we definitely want to continue doing the good work we do around financial education. I put up the resources slide at the end that has the library resources page, the general Finex resources for financial educators web page, and then the email address to sign up for Finex, CFPB_Finex at cfpb.gov. Other voice questions?
Once again, if you would like to ask a question from the phone lines, please press star, then 1, and record your name when prompted.
And then I actually would like to just ask Dubis, because I know a little bit about the libraries program, just so people have the context. There are a lot of libraries around the country who have already signed up to be part of this and are doing different levels of things, from offering materials to doing the kind of things that James described in terms of workshops and counseling. Give us the scope of the program. I have a lot of libraries signed up.
Sure. So we started in 2013. We started with 9 pilot libraries across the country, and actually we used those, and Brooklyn Public Library was one of those. We used those librarians to help us as we were developing this program. So any new ideas, we would always bounce those ideas with them to make sure that we were developing this program librarians by librarians. So we started with those 9 libraries, and we have been doing a lot of outreach in terms of going to state conferences, national conferences, with associations of libraries. One of our partners as well is the American Library Association. And we have been doing a lot of outreach to public libraries mainly, and we have we have more than 2,500 branches across the country that are getting this information We're going to be conducting a survey next year to actually measure the impact of the program, whether we're helping increase capacity at libraries to provide financial education. We know that of all those, like I mentioned, different ranges of programs. So the libraries that are distributing materials, distributing information to libraries like the Brooklyn Public Library, where they're partnering with specific groups and bringing one sessions to libraries. So we have the whole range of programs. But it's interesting because at the beginning we didn't know what the reception was going to be from librarians, but they are eager for this information because they tell us that they get these kinds of questions. And what we intend to do with the program is not that the librarian becomes a financial advisor, but the librarian has access to unbiased resources or be able to connect with those groups in the community. So librarians have actually responded very, very positively to the program.
Thank you. And actually, there was a sort of related question that came in, which is, how can I find out which libraries in my area are utilizing these services? Which is a great question.
It's a great question, but it's also a complicated question because we as a government agency protect personally identifiable information very well. So, of course, we would not be able to share contacts, but we could, we actually are looking for a way to be able to perhaps post names of libraries that are part of the program, but before we do that, we would have to ask for permission to the library in order for us to do that. I'm happy to talk to the person who sent the question and email us your question, and I'm happy to talk to you. By now, we're sort of thinking about how we make that information available.
But certainly, we encourage anyone, on this call or elsewhere to go in and talk to your local library. One, see if they're already participating. If not, encourage them to, and that may be one channel to both find existing programs or libraries are participating, and also encourage additional ones to. But it sounds like in the future there may be some way to just find out if your library is.
We hope so. And other programs are very strong at libraries are the summer reading programs for children. There's also there are a lot of children librarians out there where they're also interested in bringing these concepts to the kids. And the summer reading programs are also a very important tool, especially if you're using existing literature that sort of incorporates those financial literacy concepts. So that's also an opportunity for those groups who are working with youth.
Great. And then there was a question I was going to ask, but somebody has also emailed it in, which is how well attended, this is for James. James,
yes.
How well attended are the programs at the Brooklyn Library? Can you give us a sense of numbers, both I think for the group as well as the one-on-one counseling, to get a sense of demand and interest?
Sure. So for the one-on-one financial counseling, the usually sees between 4 and 8 people during a day. Usually it's during the week on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, like 4 to 6 is usually the range. There'd be more on the alternate Saturdays because more people are available to see the counselor on the weekend. And so we usually have between 6 and 8 on the alternate Saturdays. The workshops that are open to multiple patrons, it's usually between 10 to maybe 30. The virtual investment club is very, very popular, so we've had as many as between 40 and 45 at some of the classes for the virtual investment club. So the programs are very popular. We're trying to attract more patrons. Some of these programs, are fairly new, so hoping that by holding a virtual investment club every year and holding workshops every month, we attract hopefully a larger audience. As the personal finance area within the business library is relatively new, so we're starting from the beginning ourselves and learning how to successfully offer these programs to our patrons but we're pretty successful. It's definitely between 10 to 40 patrons for every workshop. Counseling, again, is between 4 and 8 people a day.
That's wonderful. That's great. I know, because getting people to step out of their busy lives and come to things is a challenge I think everybody faces in our field or in any service people provide.
Absolutely.
So that's great to hear. Just sort of a follow-up question from me is that, James, you obviously have programming for people. As a librarian, I don't know if you actually literally sit at your librarian desk or
I do.
if you move around a lot, but do you get a lot of people who come in with like money questions or asking for referrals, or are people comfortable asking that kind of question? I'm curious what you see just in your day-to-day kind of job as a librarian in terms of a sense of interest from people on these topics.
So I work at a reference desk for 2 hours each day, along with my other responsibilities. We receive a lot of questions usually on small business, employment, and finance, but finance specifically. We usually get patrons asking about programming, or ask for specific titles within personal finance. Big one is retirement, saving for retirement, investing in 401ks or IRAs. That's very popular. Social Security titles, questions on Social Security, they're very popular. The personal finance help books, like the Susie Orman titles, we get a lot of patrons asking about that. This is definitely a popular topic. I'd get maybe 4 to 5 questions a day from patrons just on personal finance. We do keep a record of things we're asking patrons on what topic, so we actually have a record of this. So I'd say like 4 to 5 questions a day, which is a very good day for us. So we do receive them. Patrons are interested. Whenever a patron asks about a specific subject, we refer them to our programs as well as the titles on the shelves. We try to make it clear to patrons that our expertise in the library isn't just having these books available, but also the programming that we offer.
That's very helpful. Actually, we have another question, which is asking about whether it's possible to see the content of the virtual investment club of that class, whether that is shareable, or if there's a way people can learn more about it. It's interesting that level of demand you described, and something others might want to do. Is there any way they can learn more about that?
I don't believe that it's available to the public because it's created by Mina Ennen Black, who is a special counselor who runs a program with us. Mm-hmm. She provides PowerPoint presentations and literature at the actual themselves. We've never put that information on our website. It's something I can certainly ask about, but I would have to meet Mina first because it's her creations. It's her literature that she creates for these workshops. We have not made it available on the web in the past, so it may be up to her whether she is willing to make the PowerPoint presentations available on our website. We haven't not done that in the past though, so she may only want to keep it within the work.
Yep, no, that's helpful. I think it was just whether this was some other, whether there was based on some, publicly available curriculum. And there may be other things like that out there that people could look at. I think the nice thing is just knowing that the type of thing is of interest to people. People can, educators and libraries can probably find ways to do something similar to that.
Sure. I should mention really briefly, we do offer 2 databases, Morningstar and Value Line, to our patrons. It's available for free with the library card. And those databases do have like workshops that that you can basically participate in to learn about stock market and investing. They're online tutorials basically. Available to all of our patrons. With the use of their library card, they can educate themselves online on these subjects. It's very similar to the Virtual Investment Club.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me just ask, operator, do we have any other voice questions?
There are questions in queue from the phone lines.
Okay. I am going to just ask one more thing of Dubis. We're approaching time, but feel free if you do have a question to still send it in through Q&A or dial *1 to do a voice question. But Dubis, probably folks picked up that we have a sort of a series of webinars and tools for libraries and a series of webinars and tools, such as this webinar, for financial educators. Can you, just since they're both available to either audience, can you just tell us a little about the webinars, the library webinars? What are some of the topics, so that people might, there's one that's of interest to them that maybe we haven't covered in Finex or maybe was done more recently. Can you tell me a few of those just to give people a flavor for what's available?
Yeah, so we have one similar to this presentation where we describe all the resources that are available to librarians. We have one where we had guest speakers, and it was about financial education programs for children. So we invited librarians, we invited other entities that have programs, so it's about resources for children. We also had a webinar about how librarians that get a lot of people to the library do it. So they sort of share their strategies about how they market their programs in their communities, because we heard it, and it's great to hear that James' story do get a number of people. But there are libraries out there that say that sometimes they have all these programs and this information, but it's hard to attract people. So we had a webinar about that, some like marketing ideas from librarians for librarians. We also did one on retirement tools, and so about very similar to the ones that we do for financial educators. And so, but I think
slightly different twist,
exactly.
And some that it might, and of course the audience is a little different, so they tend to sell differently in terms of how someone might use those resources. But I would mention some things like the ones for kids. We haven't covered that in a lot of detail. Finex might be of interest to some of the folks on the call today or others. Great. Well, let's use one last check. Make sure there's no voice questions. Operator, are we good with?
No questions from the phone lines.
Great. We're just about at time, so I want to thank everybody. This was really interesting. We know this one, as we know, is a little bit different than some of our other Finex webinars, because this is sort of a real local to you that we hope you can actually offer some assistance to, perhaps by finding your own local library and potentially using that as a place to, financial education or be a source of referral for libraries who may have patrons that need help. But we think some of the things on here on the library's website may be of interest. If you never go talk to your library, I think some of the lists of resources could be helpful. Definitely encourage financial educators to reach out to libraries, see them as a resource, and encourage your own libraries to do more if they're not working in this area. So again, all of the resources are on our website, consumerfinance.gov. And who's not in Finex, definitely sign up just so you get the every 4-week newsletter, so you know what's going on. And thank you so much to Dubis, my colleague, who has, of course, spoken on these before. And a special thanks to James Dye, who calling in from Brooklyn, talking about what his library is doing. You have been a leader in the field, and we're delighted to have you take time out to join us. So thank you, everybody, and I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.